Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari Jasodanandana Braja Janaranjana Jasodanandana Braja Janaranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari Yashodanandana Praja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Praja Janaranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parabrajapacharya Sutara Satasri Srimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai BBT Founder Acharya ISKCON Founder Acharya Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Anantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Nama Acharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Prem Shikaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Srivas Adi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Sri Sri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shyama Kunda Radha Kunda Govardhan Ki Jai Sri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Sri Navadvip Mayapur Dham Ki Jai Jamuna Mai Ki Jai, Ganga Mai Ki Jai, Bhakti Devi Ki Jai, Srimati Tulsi Maharani Ki Jai, Samaveda Bhakti Vrinda Ki Jai, Srila Prabhupada's Transcendental Book Distribution Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Gauranga and Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. That's all I know. That's all I know. I'll do my best. I have to begin by offering a very sincere apology because my coming here is obviously I haven't been here in some time, and because of that, some devotees have asked me to speak at this time instead of very obviously more senior Vaishnavas. And I apologize to all of you and to them and beg that you will tolerate this. I'm like the novelty. So they've asked me to speak this morning in their presence. So I beg your forgiveness if I say anything that is not as profound as what you might have heard from others. Hare Krishna. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. This morning we are reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, 7th canto, chapter 47, entitled, What Prahlad Learned in the Womb. And the text is 47. Oh, so the words are there, it can be chanted. Okay. Karmani arhabate Dehi Dehena Atma Anuvartina Karmabi Tanute Deham Ubhayam Tu Avivekata Karmanyarabhate Dehi Dehenatmanuvartina Karmavistanute Deham Ubhayam Tvavivekataha Karmanyarabhate Dehi Dehenatmanuvartina Karmavistanute Deham Ubhayam Tvavivekataha Karmanyarabhate Dehi Dehenatmanuvartina Karmavistanute Deham Ubhayam Tvavivekataha. Okay, word meanings. Karmani, material fruitive activities. Arabate, begins. Dehi, a living entity who has accepted a particular type of body. Dehena, with that body. Atma anuvartina, which is received according to his desire and his past activities. Kanamabi, by such material activities. Tanute, he expands. Deham, another body. Ubhayam, both of them. To indeed, avivekataha, due to ignorance. The translation and purport by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. The living entity who has received his present body because of his past fruitive activity may end the results of his actions in this life, but this does not mean that he is liberated from the bondage to material bodies. The living entity receives one type of body, and by performing actions with that body, he creates another. Thus he transmigrates from one body to another through repeated birth and death because of his gross ignorance. So we can repeat this since it's so profound and so essential to our whole understanding of Krishna consciousness. This would be a good verse for us to memorize. The living entity who has received his present body because of his past fruitive activity may end the results of his actions in this life, but this does not mean that he is liberated from bondage to material bodies. The living entity receives one type of body, and by performing actions with that body, he creates another. Thus he transmigrates from one body to another through repeated birth and death because of his gross ignorance. Purport: the living entity's evolution through different types of bodies is conducted automatically by the laws of nature in bodies other than those of human beings. So I won't interrupt the purport too many times, but I have to say that the world thinks of the philosophy or science of evolution as being perhaps 100 years old, 100 plus years old. That is the thinking of the world. Here we have the fact that the original science and understanding of evolution is not something concocted 100 years ago. This is the oldest original teaching of evolution. This is science. This is not just what people misunderstand as religion, as just faith with no science. Here, this is science. how many years ago was Prahlad on this world teaching about evolution? Just think of it. Hare Krishna. They think the theory of evolution is modern and advanced, so then they should really, once they understand that our movement is the original teaching school of evolution, then they should have the most respect for our movement, this Krishna consciousness movement. We are the originators of the theory of evolution, not Darwin. Hare Krishna. In other words, by the laws of nature, prakrite kriyamanani, the living entity evolves from lower grades of life to the human form. Because of his developed consciousness, however, the human being must understand the constitutional position of the living entity and must understand why he must accept a material body. So here in this sentence is the purpose of life. It is very deep, profound question that is asked throughout human history. What is the purpose of life? And Prabhupada has answered it in this one sentence. This is very deep. Humans have been searching for the meaning and purpose of life forever. And here it is, the end of their search, the purpose of life. Human must understand the constitutional position of the living entity and understand why he must accept a material body. This is the beginning of knowledge. It's spiritual knowledge, and it is the purpose of human life to begin understanding this. This chance is given to him, to us, by nature. But if he nonetheless acts like an animal, what is the benefit of his human life? So here in this next sentence is the deepest condemnation of modern culture. Now, I am ashamed to say, since this body was born in America, and America is right now one of the leading countries in the world, influencing the whole world with its culture. And what is the culture that has come from America and spread to India and Europe and Africa and Asia and everywhere in the world? What is that culture? That culture is how to take a human being and turn him into an animal. That's my country's culture, which is being accepted around the world. Everyone is imitating the dress and the concept of economic growth or economic development. Everyone is imitating what America is saying. This is the higher standard of life. Here's how to make your life goals reach. Here's how to be comfortable. And ultimately, here's how to enjoy unlimited sex. Because at the root of American culture is that simple message. How can we get unlimited sex without restriction? And that's what's being spread all around the world. Very eagerly, people are adopting. You walk around, even in this country, I haven't been here in a very long time. More people are dressed like Americans than the last time I came to India. The American poison is spreading. I'm sorry to see. In this life, one must select the goal of life and act accordingly. Having received instructions from the spiritual master and the Shastra, one must be sufficiently intelligent. In the human form of life, one should not remain foolish and ignorant. This goal, in America, all the music video that's bombarding the brain of everyone, and all the cinema that is bombarding the senses of everyone, is born from foolishness and ignorance. Simply, how can we have better sex? Ultimately, especially the music, which is leading the way. And that sound vibration is stuck in everyone's head. They walk around singing it, they walk around with devices listening to it. How can we have better sex? That's the message. It is the message of Tamagun. It's the triumph of Kali Yuga. And it is the enemy of human existence. And we take a moment to respectfully pay obeisances to our deities. Now it's more serious. I have to speak in front of the deities. Okay. Soon I'll just be talking about Prabhupada, and that will be nice for the deities. In the human form of life, one should not remain foolish and ignorant. One must inquire about his constitutional position. This is the definition of a human. If he is not inquiring about the constitutional position, then whatever else he's inquiring about, how can I have a better house with better paraphernalia? What does the paraphernalia mean? Paraphernalia is dealing with the body. What is the bodily paraphernalia? Wife, husband, children, parents, relatives, friends. That is a definition of bodily paraphernalia. Not just the objective things like clothing, conveyances, vehicles, electronic devices, flat screen, big TVs. This is all paraphernalia of the material body. Well, now I'm in big trouble. The big science guns have come. But that's the definition of bodily paraphernalia. That is, and inquiring how to get those things is not human activity. Because human activity begins when you inquire about the constitutional position of the living entity. When you spend time thinking about how can I get a wife, how can I maintain the wife, how can I please the wife, how can the wife please me, how can I get the children, how can I, on and on and on. These types of inquiries are being done in the animal society. They don't represent advancement if the same inquiries are being made by animals. Right? That's the fact that we may want to enjoy it in a different way, but that's a foolish idea. In fact, the animals may enjoy it even better than some humans because they may struggle less to acquire it than we do to acquire it. They may struggle less to maintain that family sense gratification. We struggle in human life very hard just to maintain and support a family. Some people are working very long hours, maybe even more than one job at a time. They may have an easier time enjoying it than we do. So how is it that we're advanced? That's not how you define our advancement. That we have become like animals, but working harder than the animals to achieve or enjoy what they are enjoying rather freely, and even with better capacity. Their bodies, some animal bodies, have a greater capacity to indulge in family and sex than humans. So everyone understands this, that these are not the goals of life. This is called Atato Brahma Jigyasa. The human psychology gives rise to many questions. The mental speculation or springs out of having a human mind. It is very natural for an untrained human mind to speculate about many things. That's what Prabhupada is referring to here. The human psychology, thinking, feeling, willing, gives rise to many questions which various philosophers have considered and answered with various types of philosophies based upon mental concoction. It is amazing how Prabhupada in a sweeping sentence can dismiss thousands of years of philosophy. He just dismisses it as mental concoction. This is not the way of liberation. The Vedic instruction says, Tad Vigyanartam Sagurum Eva Bigachet. To solve the problem of life, one must accept a spiritual master. Tasmad Gurum Prapajeta Gigyasu Shreya Uttamam. If one is actually serious in inquiring about the solution to material existence, and let's be clear, material existence is a problem to be solved. Well, what do we mean by that? Well, first let me explain that no matter how much money a person makes in his career, that has nothing, no bearing, no relationship to solution of material existence. And how is that? And fame, the goal of so many people to be famous in their field, amongst their friends, amongst their society. Fame is such a popular thing. Having fame has absolutely nothing to do with the solution to material existence. So the dreams of economic advancement, of personal fame and fortune, that everyone is running after such dreams and making plans and endeavoring so hard to obtain in small or big fashion, all of that is a waste, because none of it has anything to do with the solution to material existence. It is astonishing that education does not teach this. Education does not teach what does it mean to solve the problem of material existence. Well, what is the problem? Birth is the problem. Old age is the problem. You cannot stop old age by being famous or by having money. You cannot stop being born if you had money or fame in your last life. Disease, the wealthiest or the poorest, disease is coming. The most famous or the most unheard of, disease is coming. And death. These are the problems that have to be solved And the entire human society at the present time is working hard on things that have nothing to do with solving these problems. And that is why Prabhupada in one statement can dismiss all of it. Every field of endeavor he just dismissed. Because if it's not directed towards solving these problems, and they don't even know, they're not even identifying that these are the problems the purpose of life is to solve. Then they're not identifying that you need a pure devotee guru to instruct you how to solve these problems. Without that instruction, you can never solve them. So, this is the sad state of our world today in the Kali Yuga. No education, no knowledge. How long did it take the soul to go through evolution to a human body? Who can even calculate the millions of births that preceded getting a human form of life? Think of it. Because if you don't think of it, you'll not use the human life for its rare, precious gift. We need to know how hard it was for all of us to get this human body. We're all sitting here in it, human form. But for millions of years, we didn't have a human body. Millions of births. We were tasting sense objects through the bodies of non-humans. Trying to find pleasure through tasting sense objects. It's all that happens in insect life, animal life, aquatic life. That's all that's going on in these lower forms of life. They're very busy, instinctively trying to taste sense objects. So if we come after all of those efforts to finally a human body, and we only use it for the same purpose, taste sense objects, experience the flavor and smell and look and sensation of sense objects, have we advanced or have we completely spoiled the human intelligence into just becoming animals, but not in an animal form? And this is Kali Yuga. And this is what we confront. And Krishna has descended in this age because how fallen the soul is, that in human life, he takes this birth and is immediately bombarded with the message of how to be an animal. From the moment of his birth, he's just bombarded through senses, through every form of acquiring of knowledge. How can I be an animal? There's no hope for liberation in the Kali Yuga without the appearance, the descent of the Lord to give freely what no one can achieve by his own power. In Kali Yuga, you cannot achieve liberation by your own power. The odds are against us. Think of it. A simple example. When I was young, I used to play piano. So I had a teacher who told me you have to practice every day this scale and that type of music. And gradually, after some years of practice, I could make it work. That's a natural process. You practice something and you finally get good at it. So we have been practicing for millions and millions of years. We have all been practicing something. You would think after 10 years of practicing you get good at something. How about after millions of years of practicing something, can you get good at it? And what is it that we've been practicing for millions of years? What's the best way to taste sense objects? Do you know that if you don't think, from all those years of practice, that will automatically be your behavior? We've been doing it for millions of years. We're quite adept and expert. That desire is so deep that when you don't think, if you let your mind go blank, or they say in America, if you space out, if you're not focused, it won't even take a second. I don't even know how to measure time for something to be instant. But instantly, the second you're not thinking, less than a second, instantly, when you're not focused, desire for sense objects arises. That is our problem. After millions of births, that's what we have practiced. That's how we think. That's how we feel. There is a way to overcome this, but it requires the teaching of the pure devotee in sadhana bhakti. But there is a way to overcome this. In one life, you can break the habit of millions of lives. But if you're inattentive for even a second, it's not that Krishna's still there. If you are inattentive, immediately desire, until you're pure, the desire for these sense objects arises again. We cannot afford to be inattentive, because this is what comes of it. And then we immediately have to fight. If you're walking on the street and you are inattentive and you see the form of the opposite sex, immediately, without thinking, instantly, your senses will want it. You see how it works? By millions of lifetimes of practicing going after sense objects, it's instantaneous. So how miraculous is it that the habit, the ingrained habit, the heretical habit of millions of births can be broken in one short human life? That is the miracle that Prabhupada has brought. That is a real miracle, that you can break this. I mean, every morning when we chant in Mangal Arti, those morning prayers are describing exactly what Prabhupada brought to break millions of lifetimes of habit and instantly. Think of those words when you chant about kirtan, and you chant about the deity and the temple, and only nourishing your body with prasadam, and seeing and thinking of Radha and Krishna, and on and on. Every one of those verses describes the genius of this process that Prabhupada has given to all of us, that we can break out of this millions of lifetimes habit. We can break it so quickly if we stick to what he taught. Quite amazing. It's a miracle, actually. So this purport goes on and on. I'm going to not read anymore because it'll fill up the rest of the time. Prabhupada, please forgive me. It's all about you, Srila Prabhupada, finding and following a pure devotee. But I was asked to speak about you, so I'll try my best to say a few things. One of my favorite verses in the morning prayers talks about how the pure devotee, being absorbed in the loving affairs of Radha and Krishna and the gopis, it becomes an expert in assisting them in very tasteful ways. We all know this prayer. We sing it every morning. So I realized from Prabhupada's teachings that there is an external manifestation of this. And it goes to the heart of what I believe are his teachings to us, which is how to see God everywhere, at every moment. And when we can see God everywhere, in every moment, we are in the light. And the darkness of Maya will not stand in that light. So that's the goal of Vaishnava practice, how to see God everywhere and at every moment. So the practical application of this teaching, the perfect practical, joyful implementation of this is the Sankirtan Yajna. And how is that? How does that bring us into this mood of the pure devotee? Well, think of it. On Sankirtan, what are we meditating on? How are we practicing thinking, feeling, and willing? What are we training our mind in its normal activity of thinking, feeling, and willing? What is the training for the Sankirtan Yajna? It's to see every living entity as part and parcel of Krishna, non-different from Krishna, part of Krishna. Regardless of the body, old, young, fat, thin, male, female, American, Indian. No, that's not how Sankirtan devotees are training their minds to think and feel and will. But in that body, which we don't care what it looks like, inside that body is Krishna as Paramatma and as a part of Krishna as the Jiva. So the Sankirtan devotees are practicing this, how to see the living entity in every embodiment and not care what the body is, not be enamored by, oh, someone has fame, someone has title, someone has this, no. On Sankirtan, your training is you see Paramatma in the heart and a part of Krishna as the Jiva in the heart. And the more you can meditate on that, then what happens? You see that Jiva as your brother, your sister, a family member. That's Sankirtan consciousness. You see, the second you see anybody walking, that's my brother. This is not a sentimental thing. This is deep spiritual meditation. Every soul is my brother. Okay? And if my brother was in a burning house, would I run to pull him out? Or would I just walk on by and ignore that my brother is in a house that's burning and he's about to die horribly? So Sankirtan consciousness is very evident by who is running up to the soul to deliver that soul. Who is feeling natural running to every person that you see. I mean, you don't have to figure it, you don't have to literally run, and you can do it in an intelligent way that enables you to plant the seed. But the idea is, inside you're burning up with this desire to reach them and save them. And if you're not feeling that, if you don't feel that every second when you walk outside, then you don't have spiritual vision. Because the reality is that it is a soul who is your brother, who is burning and going to hell. That's the truth. So you either see it or you don't. If you see it, you have spiritual eyes. If you don't feel that way, I'm sorry, you don't have spiritual vision. You may have the trappings of being an advanced devotee, if you are not feeling that burning desire to save every single soul that your senses perceive out there, that means you do not have spiritual eyes. Because it's right in front of you that they're burning. They're drowning. They're going to hell. They're racing to marching to hell. Hellish life. So you see it or you don't. This is the test of spiritual vision. That you feel this or you don't. And if you don't feel it, keep chanting. Keep chanting your rounds and pray to Krishna to give you these eyes. Because that is spiritual vision. Now, the mood of Sankirtan is very different from, I'm going to liberate myself. I'm going to be absorbed in Krishna and I'm going back to Godhead. That's a mood, that is a mood of some devotees. That's okay. That's devotional. But there is a different mood that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta and Srila Prabhupada have delivered us to. A different mood of our movement. And that is to save others before ourselves even. We're always going to worry to make sure we're practicing Krishna consciousness, our sadhana, our round. We can't save others if we're not saved. I understand that. In fact, that was Prabhupada's first letter to me. He said that. But the rest of that letter was all about saving others. So keep yourself in their sadhana, but always then go out and see the reality and push them one step to Krishna. Just give them the next step so that their human life has not been a waste. This is Prabhupada's teaching. This is the mood of Sankirtan. And this is Nikunjayuno Ratikeli Siddhaye. This is the meaning of that verse in terms of external practice. It's not me, it was Prabhupada's teaching and I understood it. But I gave a class about this. I think it was 1973. It was in Hawaii. I was talking about Sankirtan consciousness. And I declared, as best I could, that this mood of going out on Sankirtan and saving others and bringing others to Krishna ahead of you, making tasteful arrangements to bring each soul to Krishna, that is in the Madhurya Ras. Now, we're not in the Madhurya. We don't know what Madhurya Ras. We haven't seen Krishna. But the practice of Sankirtan is in that Ras. And if you do it constantly, that's what's going to be revealed to our souls eventually. So one devotee, very nice god sister, very dear friend of mine, wrote a letter to Prabhupada. Prabhupada, Ramesvara has given this class that going on Sankirtan and book distribution is Madhurya Ras. It was a long letter she wrote to Prabhupada about this. And Prabhupada wrote back to her, but you may not have seen the copy, but the letter is in the archives. Prabhupada said, yes, he has spoken correctly. He has spoken correctly. This is the activity in the Madhurya Ras of tastefully arranging to bring other souls to Krishna. Krishna wants to love them. Krishna wants them to return to him. And if you are the instrument making the tasteful arrangement to have it happen, yes, that is actually in the Madhurya Ras, Prabhupada said. So, what keeps the Sankirtan devotee enlivened? Because it is austerity to do this. Listen, it's not the most normal thing in the world to walk up to a stranger and find a way to get him or her to like you enough that they will take a book and give a donation. It's an art. And for many, it's against their personality to just go up to strangers and start acting like they're your brother and sister and friend, and that you care about them. So it's a type of tapasya to go out on Sankirtan. So what is it that's keeping the Sankirtan devotees so enlivened? Well, this is what Prahlad was explaining to his schoolmates leading up to this verse. He started this whole section by saying, look, Krishna is living in everyone's heart as the Paramatma. And Krishna is in every heart by virtue of his particle, the Jivatma. In the heart is Krishna as the Jiva and Krishna as the Paramatma. That's how Prahlad started these teachings to his schoolmates. So this is very significant. Prahlad explained that as the Paramatma, the Lord is never leaving the living entity. He has such love for the Jiva, such love, that even in the face of abominable actions, he stays right next to that person. What friend would ever do that? First of all, no friend would follow you to the bathroom. Right? And our activities are much worse than just going to a bathroom. How is it that Krishna never leaves? Oh, this is disgusting, and then I'll come back when he stops being disgusting. No, Krishna never leaves the living entity. This is a level of love that we don't even, it doesn't exist in this world. No matter how much you love someone or someone loves you, it is nothing compared to this level of love. That no matter what we do, Krishna stays with us. He doesn't give up on us. We're not dropped and abandoned. So just imagine, I'm just finishing, if that chime is to finish, I get it. So, if Krishna has been with that living entity through its millions of evolutionary steps, Krishna has been with that living entity when it was in the body of a cockroach, when it was in a worm or a flea feasting on someone's stool. Krishna stayed with that jiva. Can you imagine it? None of us would do that for anyone who we call friend. And Krishna did that for us. Just imagine it. So through the most unbelievable, most abominable actions and behaviors and bodily activities, millions and millions and millions of lives, he's still there now. Finally, a human life. Imagine, if we can, what Lord Paramatma must be thinking and feeling inside that person's heart when the Sankirtan devotee comes and approaches. Can you imagine the Lord finally, someone is coming to save this deluded soul. Through its millions of births, now it has a human body and is acting like an animal. And finally, my devotee is risking everything, giving up everything, all inconvenience, to come up to him and beg him to look at me. Beg him to take his first step towards me. The happiness of Lord Paramatma when you do this is experienced by every single book distributor and Sankirtan devotee. Whether you realize it or not, the reason it's so ecstatic is because of the Lord being so happy in their heart that finally my devotee is coming to get them to take their first step back to me. And that is unlimited happiness that Krishna feels, and the Sankirtan devotees get to taste that. And the more you approach the souls on Sankirtan, the more you are now entering into the real ocean of ecstasy, of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. This is the real highest ocean of ecstasy is in this age for a devotee is Sankirtan Yajna. And it's coming out of Krishna and his feeling when he sees this exchange happening. And this is the heart of our Sankirtan philosophy. And when you meditate like this, It's Sankirtan Samadhi, Sankirtan Yoga. And this is how we should train our minds to think, and our minds to desire, and to feel, and to will. And I'll tell you one last secret of success for Sankirtan. It begins when you're chanting your japa every single morning. Don't chant inattentively. Just pray. We know from Bhagavad Gita that there is nothing more dear to Krishna than when his devotee goes out and preaches to the fallen souls. Krishna has stated that you become most dear to me more than anyone else if you do this. So we know that's what Krishna wants, and we know that's what Prabhupada wants, and we know from his letters and instructions, this is so dear to him. It pleases him so much. And the ecstasy that comes from Srila Prabhupada is bringing the ecstasy of the spiritual world to us through Prabhupada. The whole ecstasy of the spiritual world was brought to us through Srila Prabhupada. So it begins when you're chanting your japa. You just be attentive and beg. Japa is always about begging. Please accept me. Please let me serve you. Well, we know how. Let me serve you in the way that pleases you the most. The whole time you chant, just meditate on such a simple prayer. And then you can apply a little more. Well, what we know, what pleases you the most? Well, we kind of know. Going out in Sankirtan. If you pray like that, you will become an empowered Sankirtan devotee. I promise you. That's the simple secret of how it all began. Through intense prayer during japa. The original, and to this day, the great book distributors and Sankirtan devotees all became empowered in this way. They just begged, Krishna, please use me. I know this pleases you, so just, I don't have the personality for it or whatever. I don't have the look of it for it. Use me anyway. If you sincerely pray, such ardent prayer will be answered. Because nothing makes Krishna, nothing is more dear to Krishna. How, of course, he will not answer it. So these are the teachings of Srila Prabhupada as I understand them. How to apply this message in a practical form as devotee is to dedicate our life to this mission of saving the fallen souls. This is my favorite canto. We're getting to the point where Prahlad is going to tell the Lord, who's offering him liberation, and immediately you can go to Vaikuntha and the spiritual. And Prahlad is saying, no, I can't accept that. Imagine. You want to go back home, back to Godhead, and the Vaishnava Prahlad, the greatest Mahajan, says no. Not yet. Not yet. Not until all these other poor fools and rascals have been saved, and then I'll consider going back home, back to Godhead for myself. So we're coming up to that moment in this canto when you're going to read the most prophetic, amazing statement ever uttered by a Vaishnava. I'm prepared to stay in this world. My goal is not just going back to Godhead for myself. My goal is to get everyone else to go back to Godhead. This is practically like the father of the Sankirtan movement. And this is the mood that Srila Prabhupada has delivered to all of us. Okay, so one more minute. I'll tell you two of my most favorite Prabhupada stories very quickly. Many, many, many years ago, the devotees, I think this was in the Boston Temple, there were two nice devotees, and they had an arrangement. Each day, this is very early in the 1960s, one of them would ask Srila Prabhupada a question. And the next day, the other one would ask a question. So they were taking turns. So, one of these nice Madhajis, my dear god sister, asked Srila Prabhupada, Balai, Srila Prabhupada, can you hear Krishna playing his transcendental flute? Which we have all read that sound is liquid, ecstatic love of God pouring out in the sound vibration of Krishna's flute. Amazing. We can speculate what that might be. So she asked Prabhupada, can you hear, you're sitting here with us, can you hear Krishna playing his transcendental flute? Srila Prabhupada, on hearing that question, he closed his eyes. And you could see he was withdrawing from this external world for that moment. And then he opened his eyes again and he said, yes. Yes. That is our Guru. That is our Srila Prabhupada. That he can be here and simultaneously be with Krishna and hear Krishna's flute calling as Krishna played it to call the gopis to him and so on. I'll tell you one more quick Prabhupada story. This is also many years ago in the 1960s. Our first artist, Jadharani Devi, she was faced with this impossible challenge of painting Krishna. She had no idea what Krishna looked like. But Prabhupada had ordered her to paint for the Krishna book. This is in 69. So she was trying to figure out, well, how should Krishna's dhoti look? And she was seeing how the Grihastha and Brahmachari devotees in the temple put on their dhoti. And she had done some sketches. And so she asked Prabhupada, is this what it looks like when Mother Yasoda is dressing Krishna? And Srila Prabhupada said no. So she's sitting in his room. Prabhupada stands up and goes to his armoire and pulls out a dhoti and starts fastening it over what he was wearing in a unique way, not at all how anyone had ever seen someone putting on a dhoti. And Jadharani is sitting there, and her brain is practically stopped. And Prabhupada is dressing up and fashioning something for me right in front of my eyes. And then Prabhupada took a second dhoti and used it as a sash. And in a few moments he was finished, and he said to her, this is how Mother Yasoda dresses Krishna. So, first of all, the realization that Prabhupada knows that is so ecstatic. It's so amazing because he has seen it. He has not just heard about it. So finally, when Jadharani snapped out of it, she said, Srila Prabhupada, it went too fast. He said, let me do it again for you slowly. And he literally took everything off and again dressed up this second dhoti to be exactly how in the Krishna book paintings, when you go and look at those paintings, how Krishna looks in his dress, that's where it came from. This moment when Prabhupada put on a fashion show and displayed another one of his amazing direct realizations of Krishna in front of us. This is how Mother Yasoda dresses Krishna. That is our Srila Prabhupada, to know that from his direct realization. That's who we are following. That person who has seen Krishna, who hears Krishna's flute, who's watched Mother Yasoda dress Krishna, and who, as the servant of Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda, crossed an ocean with no money to save the entire world. And we say, Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai! Thank you very much. Hari Bol. Very good. Hare Krishna. Just one personal comment about this temple. I want you to know something. After the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita Marathon, 2 months, 17 books, that ushered in what I call the age of miracles. A short while when that marathon was over, Srila Prabhupada wrote me a letter asking for another miracle. He said, I am in India signing a contract with a company to build all of this in 1 year. I want you to send me from your book distribution $70,000 US a month for the next year. So this letter came. I guess Prabhupada had felt that whatever he asks, we're going to surrender our lives to. He had put us through that test, and somehow we passed that test. So he said, okay, here's the next miracle. This was in 1975, end of the CC Marathon. So 2 years before, in 1973, the entire collection of the American BBT was about $1 million. It was the first year of book distribution. Before that, book distribution meant selling back to Godheads on the Kirtan party on Harinam. Book distribution really began in 1973. So that year, so what Prabhupada was asking for 2 years later, $1 million, send it to Bombay. That was equal to the entire collection of every book distributor in 1973. But we all know, what do you do with the collection? Well, you need at least 50% of the collection to pay for the new printings. And then you're still giving out loans. In that year, Prabhupada had us give a $100,000 loan to France to buy the chateau, and a $100,000, $25,000 to Madhuvisa to buy a temple in Melbourne. And we were giving out big loans. So all the money was accounted for when Prabhupada wrote that letter that in addition to all your printing money and all your temple loan money, I want $1 million grant for Bombay to build all this. But he asked for it, and in his request, in his order, you should know this always, without any doubt, in the order of the spiritual master comes the power, the potency to carry out the order. That was the lesson that we learned from the Chaitanya Charitamrita Marathon. The order was impossible, but within the order is the power to execute the order. It's an amazing, ecstatic relationship between the disciple and the guru. When the guru empowers you by giving you an order and you receiving it with faith, no matter what, I'm going to do it. It can be done. No matter how impossible it may seem to my intelligence or senses. Hey, if planets can float in perfect orders, in orbits, without falling, anything is possible. That's how we thought when Prabhupada told us to print the 17 books in 2 months. What is it? I blurted out the word Prabhupada, it's impossible, and immediately he called me a fool. Of course, how can anything be impossible for Krishna or his pure devotee? So, anyway, Prabhupada gave this incredibly impossible order that go on printing millions of books, go on giving loans, but somehow or other magically come up with an extra $1 million, $70,000 a month, US, because I want to build this. So I feel so strongly when I'm here now that I have come home. I really mean it. Because we took that order, we told every temple about that order, and the North American book distributors carried out that order, and they doubled and tripled book distribution in the next year in order to come up with the money for all of this. So that's a pastime of Srila Prabhupada's, that he gives these orders and the power to carry them out is within his instruction. Thank you again. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.